Welcome to another. We'll get a clean one. Hey, my name's Frank. Welcome to another episode of whatever this is. I guess I'm just going to call it the Dead Parents Club. I've just been interviewing people with dead parents and just talking to friends and family members of my dad and stuff. So, welcome to, I guess, the Dead Parents Club is what I'm going to call it. I don't know. Today we got my homie Joey Smith.
What up?
What up? Also,
fellow member.
Who'd you lose?
Dead Dad.
Dead Dad. So both Dead Dad Club. All right, cool. How
exclusive. Was he?
You.
I was 25 when he died.
Oh, okay. Fuck, dude, that sucks. Yeah. All right. Wham. You got a bunch of stories about him and stuff, for sure. Was it like, were you guys close, or you guys like?
I have cool stories about him from like him telling me how much of a piece of shit he was in Philly, but like that's pretty much it. That's what he left me with.
So did you know him as just like, how did you? Because there's always like before your parents had you and like after your parents had you. When he had you, was he always like, just like, I guess the image of you had of him growing up, was it different than the image you've heard of him?
Oh yeah. My dad was old as fuck when I was born. He was like 48. So like, he was, yeah.
He had lived a whole life already.
Yeah, I'd be like, I didn't even know you like fishing. What are you talking about? Like weird shit like that.
Oh, yeah. Well, I grew up with my dad. So like, my dad had me when he was like 21.
Nice.
22, I think. Yeah. So like, we grew up together.
That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, sort of. I think it'd be cool to have an old dad, but it is kind of cool having a young dad too.
Yeah, I would rather have a young dad to do cool shit with.
Yeah.
I like, you know what my dad gave me as like a passion? Cream of wheat. I love cream of wheat.
You fucking love cream of wheat?
I fucking love cream of wheat.
That's hilarious. I do too. All right, so we'll get into we'll talk more dad stuff after. I'm gonna call my dad's best friend from high school, known him since high school. When I went to my dad's memorial at the American Legion, which was an old watering hole he used to drink at, the same one that my grandma used to drink at. He told me this story and it had me in absolute stitches, and so I just had to give him a call. All right, so let's call him and see how it sounds, and then I can cut around all this. Hello? Is it? Can you hear it?
There it is.
All right. I can hear him.
You can hear him?
I can't.
I can.
Can you? Oh, okay. Can you turn him up in mine? Sorry, one sec. We're checking it out. Yeah, I can't hear him. Have him call back?
Yeah, 1 second.
All right, give me a second. We'll call you right back.
Call my phone real quick.
What's yours?
210
1210
730
730
0284.
It's calling.
Hello. What the fuck is the problem?
I got you way too stoned. I'm sorry. Here, let me. Why'd we do this all first? That's wild. That's what had to happen. I had to play something first before it worked.
Yeah, it was insane.
That's ridiculous. All right. Hello?
Is this any better?
Oh, this is perfect. How is his levels?
Yeah, it sounds great.
All right, cool. Is that how loud you're going to be? I just want to make sure, just so you know. Go ahead and talk.
Are we talking to me?
Yeah, I'm talking to you.
Yeah, this is going to be a comfortable level for me, unless it's not loud enough for you guys.
No, that's perfect. Yeah, perfect. Absolutely. That's perfect. All right, cool. Hey, welcome. I'm so excited to have you. This is my dad. So wait, you were my dad's childhood best friend, or you guys went to high school together? I know you guys were very, very close.
Me and your dad met at the post office.
Oh, okay. And then how old were you guys around that time?
Oh, God. We were 23.
Wow. Was that was my dad, was I like around, or was my dad like, had my dad gotten pregnant, or had my dad gotten pregnant? Had my mom just gotten pregnant, or do you remember any of that?
So look, I'm going to start from the beginning to give you an idea.
Yeah.
The type of bond we had, because your dad was an incredible person. I'm just going to say that, and I'm not saying that because he's your dad. He was something else. It's going to be. I'm going to have to gather myself from now and then because it's still
absolutely
still fresh. But no, so it was 1987. I started working for the post office, and your dad was already working there. He was already a mail carrier. And your dad was so cool, he made everybody feel, comfortable, welcome. I was about his age, so, he came in and, your dad had hair back then. So, he was Pito Suave, he came in real cool. And, your dad's left-handed. So he kind of moved slow anyways. Your dad was very, very, it was almost like his steps were calculated how he walked, he was something else.
How long was his hair? We had
a union meeting. He had a full head of hair. It was just cut short. He wasn't sporting a Kentucky waterfall or anything like that. But he was well groomed. Your dad was in great shape because we walked like 7 miles a day when we were carrying the mail. So your dad was in great shape. 23, young, head of hair. He was driving his Honda Civic back then. He had a black Honda Civic. He had rims on it. He was single. Hadn't got married yet with your mom. And I went to school with your mom. Your mom was a freshman when I was a senior. So I knew your mom. My brother knew your mom. So when your dad eventually brought her around and she knew me, your dad's like, what? But getting back to the post office. So your dad, the way we kind of hit it off was your dad invited me to the union meeting. And I'm like, oh, there's a union meeting? He goes, yeah. He goes, why don't you meet me at the union meeting? I'll introduce you. I'll show you around. So I'm like, all right, cool. So we go to the union meeting, which downtown, like 3rd and Reed, somewhere downtown. And I get there, and there's like 5 kegs of beer. And I look at your dad. I'm like, this is a fucking meeting? And he's like, yeah, this is what we do. And I'm like, okay. So we're hanging out. He's introducing me to, a lot of the carriers that are there at the station. We're drinking beer, and the meeting ends, and he says, all right, we're going to go downtown. I'm like, we are? He goes, yeah. So we go downtown. And we go to Paradise Beach. I don't think it's there anymore, but at that time they had sand and volleyball courts inside the nightclub, and it was kind of it was a really cool vibe. It was new. San Jose was starting to build more clubs and create more of a downtown nightlife, and your dad was in it. That was his thing. If it was something current, new, your dad wanted to go check it out. Anything with music, your dad was just. He was an explorer. So that's how we kind of hit it off. We went down to the club, and when we were there, it was funny. When we were there at the club, walking around, having cocktails, this girl runs and jumps up on your dad, knocks him over. They both fall on this big garbage can inside the club. And I'm looking at like, what the heck? What's going on? And they get up and they're hugging and stuff. She's like, I haven't seen you in a while. But that's the kind of effect your dad had on people. The girls would jump on him. It was interesting. So once we kind of established we had similar interests, we were the same age. Your dad went to Overfeld High School. I went to James Lake High School. So we were in the same conference for sports, but your dad played baseball and I didn't play baseball. So I didn't know your dad. I heard that he was a really good pitcher, really good athlete. Your dad loved sports, is a diehard Dodger fan. I'm actually going to the Giant Dodger game tonight, so I will be thinking of your dad while I'm there. But, once we established, kind of a relationship, similar interest, we started going out. And at the time, I was already married, and I had my son, Mark, my firstborn. And later on, probably about maybe a year or so was when your dad got together with your mom, and then they got, serious. They got engaged and they got married. And I remember when your dad got married and they lived over in East Side. They had got a house together. And then shortly after that, you were born. So Move forward maybe another year and a half, we both end up being divorced. Now we're both single parents now. We both have little boys, and we're still going out.
Yes.
Because
yes.
we were that age. It was just, we should have probably played it out a little further before trying to settle down, but we didn't. And as a result, we had, a couple of young lads out of wedlock now, and they're going back and forth. And I will say this about your dad, and I was telling somebody this the other day. Whenever your dad had you, if I called him and said, "Where are we meeting up? What time?" He'd say, "I have Frankie Jr. tonight." And I said, "Oh." He goes, "We're not. She's picking him up around 9:30 or 10." So I'd say, "Okay, no worries. I'll, give me a call after you're done spending time with Frankie." Who, I don't know if you know this or not, but your dad called you the professor.
Why?
You didn't know?
No.
He says, "I have the professor tonight, so I'm going to be. It'll be a while before I'll meet you guys out."
Why was
there.
I
I'll
the
get a ride or
professor?
something. Well, because when you were growing up, you had such an intellect for like insects and bugs. So he would get like these books and stuff, and it would just intrigue you that you would be interested in these things. So he called you the professor because and you're a lot like your dad, because your dad would read the newspaper at the bar like about 1:00 until he was done reading what he needed to read, and then it was time to to kick it into the party mode. But yeah, your dad, he read a lot.
That was the thing I was found very interesting about my father was, a lot of people, like I think he just graduated. I think he went to college for a little bit. I don't know if he got any degrees or anything, but he was
he was pursuing baseball.
Yeah,
he was pursuing baseball. Then.
Yeah. But he was always very like smart and like well cultured. He'd read stuff. He'd always ask questions. He'd look things up. He loved documentaries.
That's how he educated.
Yeah.
Yeah. He educated himself.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't wait for knowledge to come to him. He went looking for it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know a lot of people that know him know that about him, but, your dad was very smart. And that's why he had such a quick wit about him, because he was smart. He was fast thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw a girl one time asking for his phone number in front of the club. And she said, "Can I give you my number?" And your dad says, "Yeah." And she looks at him. She goes, "Well, aren't you going to get a pen and paper?" Your dad goes, "I have a really great memory." She's like, "Really?" Oh, I mean, he was just, I can't even describe your dad, but he just had such a way of.
Yeah. What was some iconic moments? Because I remember you said you witnessed him talking to some chicks, and he was really good at picking up chicks.
It's because your dad didn't care. Your dad could tell right away if there was a connection or if it was going to move forward or not by the way he interacted with them. And it was kind of, straightforward. I'll give you an example. This was one night we were coming home, and at the time your dad was working. I don't know if you know this or not, but he was working downtown with his friend Alex, and they had an automotive shop.
No, I remember that. Yeah.
Okay. So downstairs they had a waiting room. Right. And then above the work area, they had kind of a loft, and your dad would kind of stay there sometimes if we got out late and didn't want to drive too far. We would just go down the street to there, and we would crash there so that we wouldn't run into any situations. So one night he was giving a ride home to one of his sisters. I can't remember which one it was, and another girl. And on the way home, the girl is having a conversation with your dad, and it's not so much a conversation as it is a negotiation. And I couldn't believe I was listening to this conversation, but she's like, "Frank," she's, kind of drunk, little slurry, "Frank," and your dad's driving. He's like, "What?" She's like, "I want to hit it." And your dad's going, "Oh no, that can't happen." And she's like, "Come on, Frank, I want to hit it." And she kept on and on and on all the way. I mean, it was like, I wanted to say, "Shut the fuck up." But your dad's like, "All right, if I hit it, it doesn't mean we're together." and he's like, "I'll hit it, but that's it." And she's like, "I want you to hit it." So we get to the automotive shop, and your dad gets me a blanket and a pillow, and he walks me in to the waiting area. Like when you come into the business, to tell them you need, your car repaired. So I'm in there. He closes the blinds and there's like a couch in there, and he gives me a pillow and a blanket. He goes, all right. He goes, do you need anything else? No. He goes, because I'm about to go upstairs and take care of business. And so I can hear your dad. He goes up. You can hear the wood steps to get up to the loft. He gets up there. And a few minutes later, you hear, oh, and your dad's kind of laughing a little bit because he knows I'm downstairs in the waiting room and I'm kind of listening. I can hear everything. But it was just, your dad was just straightforward. There was no lie. He didn't lie to people. He didn't feel he had to because he was just being him. That's why people loved your dad so much, was because they knew where he stood. He wasn't fake. He'd call you out if you were being a bitch. You know what I mean? Your dad was solid. Your dad was a solid person. And we both kind of had similar ethics, is why I think we got along so well. As a matter of fact, the last picture your dad sent to me was the night of my son Mark's 37th birthday. We all met, we were playing pool. They stayed later than I did and kept drinking. And your dad sent me a picture and says, I stayed, made sure your boy, excuse me, got home. And that was the text he sent me. So, and I'm sure at that time your dad was probably already sick, but he still, he goes, I called him and I thanked him. I said, hey man, I said, you had to work the next morning. He had to open the next morning, and he stayed till like 2:30 in the morning, and he had to open the next morning. And he said, hey, I made sure your boy got home. I called him. I said, dude, what are you doing staying out so late? He would have got it right. He goes, no. He goes, I know if that was Frankie, you would have done the same thing. I go, you're right. I would have. So that's the kind of person. But getting back to the conversations with the ladies, there was one time we found ourselves doing what all the other guys do when they go to the clubs. You get to the club, you grab a drink, and you start looking around for talent, and you start walking around, hanging out at the dance floor, looking for an opportunity to talk to somebody, right? So the girls are just kind of waiting for these guys to come by, and then they determine which one they want to be with or whatever they want to do. But I told your dad one day, I said, what are we doing running around? Why don't we just get a table, post up, let them come to us? And your dad goes, yeah. And so we get a table, we're drinking some beers, and your dad goes, hey man, I gotta go to the can, watch my seat. So I said, all right. So your dad leaves, and out of nowhere, I don't know who this person was, but this girl comes, sits in my lap, and starts kissing me. I'm looking at her with my eyes wide open as she's kissing me, trying to figure out if I know her, if it's somebody I met, but I have no clue who it is. Your dad comes walking up a few seconds later, sees this girl on my lap, and your dad goes, where's mine? I said, I don't know who this is. She just sat in my lap. Those are the kind of situations that just seem to happen to us. Not that we were these great looking guys running around, but I think there was kind of a charisma about us because we're just a couple of young guys out there looking just to have fun. There was no malicious content behind, the smile on our faces. We were truly there just to have fun. And if we met people, we met people. Your dad was just that. He knew everybody. People came, they knew who your dad was. But he truly had a way. He was really smooth when he was talking to the girls, and it was just quick little hits, your dad, I could introduce your dad to a girl, and then I knew they would hit it off because your dad he knew how to talk to his audience, just like you as a comedian, who your audience is and what you're going to say or what not to say. That's how your dad was. Maybe that's where you get a little bit yourself because, your dad was smart enough to know who he had in front of him and what he needed to say, to close the deal. There was many times I would be at the club and girls would come at me and say, hey, where's Frank? And I said, he didn't come out with me tonight. This one girl told me to tell your dad, well, you tell Frank, he knows how to hit it. I'm like, okay, I'll make sure he gets that.
Yeah, dude. I mean, even in his old age, me and my dad would talk, and girls would just go crazy. And I'm like, dog, you must be throwing it down if they're fucking getting wild, dude.
Yeah, yeah. Because every once in a while, he would throw the A game on the wrong girl, and he would be like, He goes, I threw the A game. Now she's static clean. And he goes, she has my tape.
Static
She has my
cling.
tape. Yeah. So she's got my tape, so I got to go hit it so I can get my tapes back. I'm like, okay, you do that.
Oh my god.
Did you ever know your dad had a brown bag full of cassette tapes?
Oh yeah, no, I know he had. So I wasn't around for the cassette tapes. I was around for the big, huge binder. He had 2 full binders of just CD albums of just literally.
No,
like,
this was before CDs. He had cassettes. He had a little boom box and cassettes. So if he was going to hang out with, a lady, or if he was hooking up, he took his boom box and his cassettes. He was going to set the mood. But there was a few times they broke up. She still had the tapes. So he'd say, I got to go back and hit it so I can get my tapes back. He knew there was going to be a toll to get the tapes back.
Dog, that sounds like a fucking like a movie plot for the fucking 70s. You know what I mean? Like, he's just like, guys, I gotta fuck all these chicks to get my tapes back.
Dude, it's primitive. We lived in a primitive time. We didn't have all this digital music on our phone. We had, we used to make cassette tapes off of listening to the radio. That's how we'd make mixtapes. But that's how OG your dad was. He had appreciation for all types of music. And I'm sure that's because his mom and his dad, were very, they were very cultured, and they knew what was good. And it didn't matter where it came from. They listened to everything. Your dad had a very good, I'm sure it wasn't the best. Not everybody's family is functional, but he did take what he could, the best from both of his parents. And that's what kind of made him, your dad it was never about violence. There was a few times I wanted to get violent, and he would stop me and go, no, dude, it never gets to violence. That's what your dad would tell me. So, your dad had a strong presence, but it wasn't where he was looking to get physical when we went out or anything. It was always, so I'll give you an example. I just thought about this the other day. There was a club downtown called Ajax Lounge. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. They should make more clubs like this. They had a bar and pool hall on one side, and they had a DJ spinning house music on the other with couches. The lighting was great. And then they had a great selection of draft beer, and they would change. And your dad loved to go because your dad loved beer. And he would always look to see if they had new flavors on the wall, and that would excite him. And then we'd head over to play pool because your dad absolutely loved to play pool, and he was good at it. It was a game of skill. You had to think ahead. That was your dad. So we get over there, we're drinking, we go over, and there's a fucking long line of names already on the board to even play. So your dad gives somebody like $10 or something, and they cut us up on the board, and we get on and we're playing. So other guys that had their names on the board were pissed because we had basically come in, cut them off, and they had been waiting, and so they complained. So the bouncer comes over and he tells your dad, hey, are you going by the names on the board? Your dad goes, yeah. He goes, no, you're not. You're lying. And he's all, no, we are. We're good, man. And the guy goes, no, just somebody complained. They've been here waiting before you, and you guys are already playing. And so your dad's like, hey, man, how much do you make here an hour? And the guy's like, they're giving me $10. Your dad goes, here's $20. Leave us alone for a couple hours. I'm like, oh, fuck. So that doesn't help. Now they're telling us we have to leave. Now your dad.
By the way, classic dad move. My dad would do that shit all the time where he's like, all right, well, how about this? And then this is like, that's an insult.
Yeah, it's $20. Leave us alone. And I'm going, fuck. We just got here, dude. I don't fucking want to leave. So they walk us downstairs because it was upstairs. So we're walking downstairs and we're on the sidewalk. Your dad, whenever he went out, a good 75% of the time he'd wear his Dodger hat, right? So we get downstairs, your dad looks up, the motherfucking bouncer's wearing a Giants cap. And your dad goes, hey, is this a giant Dodger thing? So we obviously weren't allowed to go back up there that night, but That was just the way your dad was like, oh, you're going to throw me out? I'm going to clown you all the way out. How's that?
Yeah.
He had a way of belittling you in such a well-mannered way that you sometimes didn't even realize he was cutting you down. You know what I mean?
And it was also
that's how you're.
It's so harmless enough that if you got upset, it would make you look like the asshole.
Well, the way he delivered it, because your dad had such a very calm, low voice that it wasn't said in a way to try to gas the situation. It was said more in a way to like, I'm dropping the mic. This is all I have to say to you because you're an idiot. But that's, that was a lot of the ways we got a lot out of a lot of situations because, your dad was pretty smooth and, he knew how and what to say to people. Sometimes at the worst of times, he had a good vocabulary, I mean, for somebody that really didn't continue on with school and further their education, you would have thought your dad was educated.
Yeah. He was very street smart. I remember it was so fun. I remember he was dating an ex and she was so fucking dumb. And I remember we were all talking once. And me and my dad, like one of the things I loved talking to my dad was just pop culture. We'd just shoot the shit. We'd talk about things and like I could have conversations with my dad. And I remember one time we'd finished talking.
You could be yourself.
Yeah. And I remember we finished talking and his girlfriend just looked at us. She was just like, wow, you guys are just so smart. And we were just kind of like, what? And she was like, you guys are just so smart. You guys know all these like words and stuff. And I was just like, I looked at my dad in my head. I'm like, dog, you're dating a dummy. Like you're dating just a fucking idiot, dog.
Yeah. I mean, he was the equal opportunity employer.
Yeah. What was you want to tell us the Tijuana story?
You know what your dad used to say?
What?
Don't turn them down. Turn them over.
Yeah. He was like, they're all 10s. There's no ones. They're all just 10s. That's so funny.
I mean, did he ever tell you we went to the exotic erotic ball in San Francisco?
No, what's that?
Really? They used to call it the hookers ball.
Okay.
It's a night where on Halloween where all of the prostitutes would celebrate downtown. Because they're kind of in costume dressed up for ladies of the evening. So they created the hookers ball downtown San Francisco. It got so popular that they changed it, blew it up, and they made it the exotic erotic ball. That you could get tattoos there, piercings. They had porn stars that were there. The night that we went, it took us 2 hours to even get into the venue. There was a line all the way around the San Francisco Convention Center. It packed the San Francisco Convention Center. So you could go in the night that we were there, though, the band that was playing, we didn't know this at the time, but when we get in and into the place finally, is Parliament.
Parliament
Collins, George
Parliament Funkadelic?
Yes. They are playing that night live.
That's fucking wild.
So we finally get in. And it's kind of a reception area, so it doesn't look like much. And I'm like, fuck, we just waited 2 hours and this is it? And your dad's like, nah, there's got to be more. And we look and we see a door where people are going down. I walk over and it's stairs, and it's the first phase of the convention center. There's a DJ, and the beat is pumping, and you're like, okay, now I know why it's a 2 hour wait to get into this shit. So me, your dad, my wife now, but at the time we were living together, her cousins from Scottsdale, they played on the ASU golf team, flew in. They had no idea what they were getting into, and our roommate, Heather. There was about 7, 8 of us. So we're walking down the stairs, and we're just kind of blown away, like, holy shit, this is fucking insane. So there's kind of a walkway around each side of this structure, and the event is happening kind of in the middle. So we're walking along the sides, trying to get to an opening to get down to where the festivities are going on. And it's so crowded. And as we're walking, we can see the crowd in front of us having to part around something. And as we get closer to it, you can see this guy has on like a black leather hat. He's got a goatee. And he's like looking at people as they walk around him. And as you get closer, this guy is fucking beating his meat right there in front of everybody. That's the kind of event this was, right? And he's fucking spanking it and looking at you as you're walking by while he's spanking it. And then people are just like, what the fuck? So we get up there, your dad's like, Your dad sees him finally, goes, fuck, I'd have mine out if it was that big. And somebody went up to take his picture, and he smiles. Your dad's like, he's smiling. Oh, shit.
That's amazing.
And so we're in this place, and I mean, we're seeing some wild shit. I mean, people will just start fucking, and then cameras and everybody will run over and start taking pictures. And I mean, it was like so many different things going on. Your dad was just in heaven, people watching.
Yeah.
Just the stuff that was going on. And so we get to the second phase of the convention center, and that's where Parliament, Bootsy Collins, George Clinton is actually judging the costume contest for the evening, right? So we're there in front of we work our way up as close to the front of the stage as we can. And me, your dad, and my wife, Lily, we're there and we're watching. So George Clinton walks out, 2 girls, okay, just completely bodied out, completely naked. One's painted gold, one's painted silver, okay? And George Clinton brings them out, does a 360 with both of them, and he says, I think these are your winners. And then people started clapping, and George Clinton's like, are you sure? These girls both at the same time turn around, bend over, and grab their ankles. And your dad fucking yells out, I can see your tonsils.
Oh, my God. Ugh.
Right there in front of George Clinton. But, the amount of stories and adventures your dad and I mean, we had San Jose at the time, Santa Clara, Sunnyvale. We knew what our agenda was starting on Wednesday, and it would go from Wednesday to Sunday. Monday and Tuesday would be considered the weekend for us, and then the next 5 days were working days. So Tunes was a staple for your dad, right there on the corner of 2nd Street and Santa Clara.
Yeah.
Do you ever remember anyone talking about Tunes?
00. Like Looney Tunes.
Okay.
Yeah, no, sorry, I'm talking to my producer. Yeah, no, I did. So like whenever I talked to people, they would always tell me your dad was a legend of the downtown scene. And I didn't realize that. I am literally just now realizing that you meant like the nightlife. Like there was a bunch of big nightclub scene, and my father was a big part of it. Like he was almost like a character, like a mascot. Because I remember Tunes. I remember. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I remember Tunes. I know Jax. I remember Katie Blooms. I remember not the Mission. It was there was a place
that
the
Mission Inn.
Was it the Mission Inn? Is where Justin Grady used to cook at.
Yeah.
And then the Firehouse. This is like my age. But before then, I had heard stories about San Jose Live.
Oh.
Yeah, and Bladder Busters.
Yeah, there was a bunch. That's why it was. It was a good time. You could just walk. You could, if it was you could Uber downtown and hit maybe pub crawl 6 to 8 clubs.
I don't know if they have it online, but type in San Jose Live Bladder Busters. It was a themed night that they would do. My dad was telling about it, where they would lock everybody in the bar, turn off all the lights, lock the bathroom doors, and they would unlock one entrance. And it was 30-cent or like 35-cent draft beers. And the first person to open the door, that's when it would all end. So people would go and just drink as much as they could, and whoever had to pee first, because the bathrooms were outside, and when you open the door, the light would pour in. So it was very obviously someone opened the door. So people would drink and try to hold their pee as much as possible. And like my dad said that people would just get fucked up, and then the second the door opened, people would boo and scream. And like he was like, there'd always be that one guy who was like visiting, and like they'd open the door 30 minutes in, and people would lose their fucking minds.
Yeah, that would be your dad. Dick.
My dad was the king. You know what my favorite thing about my dad was? My dad was the king of being like, you see this with comics, where it's like if there's a big comedy show and there's comics in the back, someone will always shout something in the back. My dad was always the shout something in the back guy, where he was like the anonymous voice in like a group of people. Like he would always be like the guy in the bar, like with his back turned, and you'd be like, oh, look at this fucking asshole. And he'd be like, who said that? You know what I mean? He's that guy. God. It's funny hearing stories about my dad because I hear stories about my dad and it just reminds me how much alike we are. It really, truly just...
You are.
It blows my mind. One of my...
You are two very, very much alike.
One of my favorite stories that happened at the store that kind of reminds me of something he did. So Tim Dillon was there, and he has one of his friends is another comic who I can't remember his name. I don't want to say his name exactly, but he's famous for being the friends of everybody of much famous comics, right? So when I was coming up in the scene, he was one of those guys that would go do open mics and be like, I'm too cool for this, right? And there's a group of those guys, and all those guys are producing podcasts. They're not the front face of anything. Anyways, so a friend of ours passes away that's a comic, right? There's a memorial service, everything. He comes, and everyone that works there doesn't remember who he is. All my class knows him because we all remember coming up at the open mics, but he never really hung out at the club like that. So no one knows who the fuck he is. So he kind of was a dick to the security guard, and the security guard was kind of being a dick back, and then it became a pissing contest. And then, they eventually kick him out. Tim Dillon comes and is like, hey, this is my friend, right? Which should have been the thing that ended everything. But once you start pissing on the security guard, it becomes a dude thing of it becomes a guy thing of well, now fuck you. Now I'm going to be a real asshole to you. You know what I mean? So they're fucking arguing in the lot. It becomes a big thing. Everyone starts to gather in the lot. So it's comics, employees, everyone's just because there's a commotion, right? And he walks to Tim Dillon's car, and he's yelling at everybody. He's like, you fucking suck, blah, 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 blah. Gets in Tim Dillon's passenger seat of his Bentley. You know what I mean? There's something so funny about getting in your friend's multi-million-dollar car at a club you're not in, right? Anyway, so he's just yelling at the security guard, and then it's quiet, and then you just hear me go, yeah, you don't know who Tim Dillon's friend is? And everybody laughs a solid and then he gets so mad he storms off into the car, and then Tim Dillon's like, why the fuck do I even come here? And he leaves. And it was so funny because I said it, but I said it behind a group of people. So when I said it, I ducked down, and then the guy that was in front of me was an employee, and he had laughed because he thought it was funny. And then everyone looked at him, and he was like, "Oh no, I didn't say it." He was like, "It wasn't me, dude." It was truly one of the best. I was like, "That's so fucking funny." I don't think he knows it was me, but yeah, it was great. But my dad,
your dad was with me the night I met my current wife, Lily.
Really? Where was that at?
We're at Tunes.
Whoa.
I mean, if you wanted to kill us, you knew where we were going to be on Wednesdays. Put it that
way. Tunes, yeah, I heard lots of good stories about Tunes. What was the
50-cent drafts on Wednesdays?
That's okay. And 50 cents back then was
50-cent draft. And your dad would throw a 5 down. 50-cent drafts, 5. Line them up. That's what your dad would say. Line them up. And then the rest of the night, you just see cup stacking. Your dad would be on number 5, number 6, Yeah. And he'd say, where are we at on the board?
All the bars he's talking about are all closed.
The night we were there was a Wednesday night. We're drinking beer, and the Gents, I don't know if you know who the Gents are. They were a cover band there for Tunes. And Greg was their lead guitar player, wrote the hit song, Walking on the Sun by Smash Mouth.
Yeah.
He later went into Smash Mouth. Well, Greg was in the Gents, which was a cover band. They were playing that night. Your dad loved the Gents. Your dad would get up on stage sometimes and play Greg's guitar with his one hand while he did the neck with his other finger. Your dad would play the guitar, but
what?
Your dad was like a celebrity at Tunes. Yes. So, dude, when we went to Tunes, just before I get into the story, I don't mean to get distracted, but I'm just going to give you an idea how we were dialed in at Tunes. The entrance to Tunes was on the corner. You had a line down one side and another line going down the other side. You had a velvet rope that would open up to let people in. And you had, at the time, his name was Justin. He's a bad mofo. You don't want to mess with Justin, but he was on the rope, and he would be letting in people as people were leaving to monitor capacity. So there was one night, your dad and I probably had 10 people behind us. As we walked up to the club, Justin lifts up the rope, Everybody goes in. As we're the last people to enter, he looks at us and says, "Is that it?" And we're like, "That's it, Justin." And he would shut the rope, and you could hear people on both sides going like, "Who the fuck is that?" You know. And so as we get in, the DJ booth is on the left-hand side, and the owner of the club would always kind of be in the DJ booth, kind of hanging out. And he sees us. He's like, "Hey, Frank!" He would yell out your dad's name. Your dad would make eye contact with the bartender. All right. The bartender would see your dad and make your dad's drink and put it on the side of the bar where your dad could get it. The people at the pool table would see your dad and immediately write his name on the board. Now, that's how we would get into the club. Now, once we were there, it was like we were at home and you were all guests were at our house. That's how we kind of felt at that time. So it was a Wednesday night, 50-cent drafts. I'm playing pool with your dad, and we always played for drinks. Because, we were limited on funds, but we knew how to maximize our funds wherever we went. Being there on a 50-cent draft night and then playing for drinks, we weren't worried. We weren't going to get thirsty before it was time to leave. But we were there, and my wife-to-be walks in with another girl that I know, and they're there for a birthday for somebody that I went to school with. So I'm like, holy shit. So my wife's name is Lily. She's sitting there, and her friend's name is Heather.
Is that my dad? No, I'm kidding. Sorry, we're looking at pictures of
Tunes.
We're looking at pictures of Tunes, and I'm like, is there a picture of my dad on the fucking Tunes? Sorry, go ahead.
Probably. So we're playing, and I would talk to her in between shots, and your dad's not going to be here anymore to validate my story. So it's going to, my wife will always deny it, but your dad always validated. So as I'm waiting for my turn, I have my pool cue in my hand. My wife-to-be comes over, takes it out of my hand as your dad's watching me like, where the fuck you going? You're next. And I'm like, I guess I'm dancing. And we go out to the dance floor, we dance and come back. And your dad, without me knowing this, had gone over and taken the pool cues away from the other guys because it was my turn. He says, my boy's up next. He's going to run the table. So you guys might as well, go get a drink. And then he comes over to me and goes, hey, I just talked a hell of a lot of shit. You better run the table. And so that was the kind of situations your dad would create at wherever we would go. It was just fun for your dad. And so when we ended up leaving that night. My wife is in her car and she's driving. Me and your dad, I think, got dropped off. We're headed to another bar. And she asked me if I wanted to ride home. And like we would do for each other, I said, if you give my friend a ride home, you can give me a ride home. So we took Frank home, and we went, and the rest is history. But your dad was there for a lot of iconic moments with me. We always would end up, if he was in a relationship, I wouldn't see him for a while, or if I got hung up on a girl, he wouldn't see me for a while. But there would always be those times in between where we would both be single, and that's where lightning would strike, man. It was just, it didn't matter. It didn't matter how long we hadn't seen each other. The chemistry was still there. It was like we had worked together for 40 years and would just pick up where we had left off before. But, your dad, because I had been married, and then your dad had been married. But your dad was okay no matter whether he was in a relationship or not. He didn't need to be in a relationship. Although he loved women, he didn't need to be in a relationship. He could date around. He loved just being social, being out. He loved life, I guess would be the best way. Your dad loved life.
Yeah. I miss him. You, what was the Tijuana story before we get out of here?
All right. This was an insane 24 hours. So we were going down to his brother's house in Whittier, Haya, and we were going to go with them to Scottsdale for New Year's. So we flew into LA. We got to Haya's. He picked us up and goes, hey, man, we're not going to be able to go to Scottsdale. My whole family's sick. And I'm looking at Frank like, what the fuck? So his brother says, well, you can take my Celica if you guys want. Go to TJ for New Year's. So your dad right away is like, yeah, that'll work. And I'm like, okay, we're going to TJ. So the next day we had to get some tires on the Celica because they were pretty bad. So we got tires. So we got a late start. And by the time we actually get into TJ, we park on the United States side and walk across the bridge. we get into TJ, and as soon as you get into TJ, there's like this reception area with a bar and everything. So, your dad, like a horse to the well, he's right up at the bar. Next thing I know, and he's ordering a shot, a tequila, a margarita, and a beer. And I look at him and I go, Frank, it's only 3:00. And he looks at me and goes, I know, we're behind.
I know, we got to catch up.
He's got an internal clock where he should already be, and he wasn't. So he was dialing it in so he could get there quick, right? So we get a taxi and we head down to Revolution, and we're kind of bouncing from bar to bar and trying to get the lay of the land. It's really early still. It's still daylight. So your dad sees a strip bar, Zarape, and he goes, "Come on, let's go in this place." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So we go in, and I mean, I have not been in a lot of these, but we walk in, and on the bar, you have all of these girls sitting down on the bar all the way across. So your dad immediately, I mean, his timing is, he was ahead of computers then, because he goes and grabs the most beautiful girl on the bar. Now, your dad doesn't speak a lick of Spanish, but is trying to negotiate a blowjob and swallowing in Spanish. So I'm sitting next to him and I'm watching him. He's all, "Cuánto chupa mi chota?" And so he doesn't know how to say swallow in Spanish. So he just says swallow and makes the motion on his neck. And so he negotiates a price of $25. He goes, "Come on." And just then, this really large lady sits down next to me and puts her arm around me. And I look at Frank and I go, "I'm not doing this." He goes, "Come on, dude. She's just sucking your dick." And I'm like, "I only got $20. Your dad throws down a $5 bill. He goes, "Here's $5." So this place is kind of sketchy. There's these little, almost like dressing rooms with a little drape that goes across and a little bench, right? So they sit you down there, and they'll get you situated, get you your protective, get your condom on you, and I can hear next door the girl's talking to your dad, and I think she assumes your dad speaks Spanish, so she's like, "¿Qué pasó your pito, Pancho?" And your dad's like, "It's kind of like Aladdin's lamp." I'm listening to him next door. And then these guys come in with trays of alcohol, and they're like, "All right, it's going to be $30. So they're trying to sell you the whole package. And she's like, "Buy me a beer to rinse my mouth." And your dad's like, "Here, you can use mine." The whole time we're in there. And then they're like, "Okay, the time's almost up." So we leave. I was like, what a waste of $50. They were just trying, it was a clip joint, And so we ended up at this club we ended up staying at the rest of the night. I think it was like Club Geckos. I was on the second floor. This place had a school bus on one side hanging out on the outside of the building. You could actually go in there and have drinks and look out at the street and people. It was pretty cool. It was packed, but we had got there early. We got there probably around 6:30, and we're in there. It's it's still a little light outside and not a lot of people there, and the club hasn't hit a vibe yet. And so we see a couple of the best looking girls that are there, I'd say. And your dad's like, "Let's go get them." So we go over, grab their hands, go off the dance floor. We ended up, dancing with them for a while, and then eventually they leave. And now it's a little busier, and now we're into nighttime, probably around 8:00, and we grab a couple other girls, and we're with them for a couple hours, drinking, hanging out, and then we're now probably 10:00. I had I was hanging out, having some drinks, and your dad hooked up with this young girl, and they were dancing, and I was on the dance floor. This older lady had asked me to dance, so I was dancing with her. And your dad comes over with this girl, and he goes, "Hey, my girl wants to know why you're dancing with your mom." That's your dad. So I push your dad, and I guess I pushed him so hard that him and the girl end up going into like 2 or 3 tables in the club, and your dad's laughing and what have you. We're getting close to midnight. It's about 11:15. This time I'm pretty buzzed, and I know your dad is, but I didn't know your dad had left the club for almost an hour and a half. So he sees me. He goes, "I'm back." I go, "Where'd you go?" He goes, "I went back to Alzadais." I'm like, "What?" He said, "Yeah, my girl's brother was here, and I took him over. So, I was there." So he came back, and at midnight, we took our beer bottles. We sprayed them at the stroke of midnight, celebrating with everybody there. We were actually standing on bar tables, spraying everybody. And a couple of girls, couple blondes walk in, and they yell at us, "Hey, you." And your dad yells back, "Who, me?" He says, "What do you want?" He says, "Come here." So your dad's like, "Check these girls." So we walk over, and this girl puts her arms around me and starts kissing me. And your dad looks at me and goes, "When's the wedding?" And I'm like, "What?" So we're hanging out, they're buying drinks. So, your dad's like, "Well, we're not going nowhere. They're buying drinks. We'll just hang out here." So I'm hanging out with this one girl, and your dad's dancing with this other girl. And while your dad's dancing with this other girl, he sees this other girl he's been trying to hit on the evening. And this girl has her back to your dad while they're dancing. So he's kind of reaching out to this girl on the dance floor, like, "Hey, I want to get at you." And then as he's doing that, the girl that was in front of him turns around and sees him. And your dad's like, "What, babe? It wasn't like it seems." And I was like, "Oh my God, this is going to end now," because, he goes, "They're not going anywhere." So we end up leaving with them, like 6 girls in one car that morning, like 6 a.m. And we go back to the hotel, and, we party on. But we get up the next day, and we go back into TJ for day 2. We get back up to the same club, and the guy, the bouncer at the club, he lifts the rope up just like back home and says, "I remember you guys were here last night," and lets your dad in without a cover or anything, just from what he saw the night before. So
always
we
the life
partied.
of the party, man.
There was no finish line. We're going to go until there isn't any more party. That was your dad. We're going to squeeze every amount of juice out of it. But that night we lasted till, I don't know, about 10 o'clock the next night. We were tired. But when we were leaving, this is what I remember about your dad to this day. He was running to each corner ahead of me, and the guys were already out with the bacon-wrapped hot dogs. Your dad would order 4 hot dogs. He'd go, "I want 4 hot dogs. He's paying," and would point at me. And then he would run to the next corner, and he goes, "4 hot dogs. He's paying." And he kept running. He did this for like 3 blocks till finally I was out of fucking money. And I said, "Don't order any more hot dogs, motherfucker." And so, I don't think he could have eaten anymore, but he ate like 6 hot dogs in 3 blocks.
Oh my God. It's so fucking
There's
funny.
a bunch more stories. Maybe another time. I've rambled enough on
Not at all. This was
but
perfect. This is literally, you did 50 minutes. This is exactly what I wanted. This is the goal that I've been trying to dig for. This is perfect. I think this is going to be something I keep doing, is just talking about pops and having other people whose parents have passed away on, and just telling stories. Because the last one go ahead.
Yeah. No, he had different relationships with different people.
Yeah.
And very diverse.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know your dad would be friends with somebody, but your dad he saw the person inside, when he started talking to them to see what they were about. And then he would tell me if they were cool or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's all, "No, he's cool. He's cool." So, that's what you have too. You have that characteristic. And that, that's what makes you who you are. But your dad was one of a kind, dude. He was one of a kind.
Yeah, he was the best. Dude, thank you so much for calling. Thank you so much for doing this and telling me stories about my pops. It really makes things a lot
It was my
easier.
honor, dude.
Dude, thank you so much.
My-
I'm
You got
going to
it.
cut some clips. This is going to be hilarious. Dude, thank you so much. You're the absolute best. Anything you want to say before you get out of here? I don't think you have anything to plug. You don't have any dates coming up. You're a regular person.
I don't have any dates coming up, but my wife Lily is a wedding officiant.
Oh, okay.
She's the wedding lady. Yeah, so I mean, she's doing well. My son Antonio works at the El Paseo Louis Vuitton. He's an expert client advisor.
Nice.
You know, go in and see him. And my daughter, who doesn't have a career yet, but is in her last semester at Cal State Fullerton, Natalie. She's doing great.
That's awesome. That's really, really cool. Any words of wisdom or life advice you'd like to leave on anyone listening?
Well, there was one piece of advice your dad would always tell when we were single. He says, how many dinners and how many movies are we going to buy before you hit that? So I will just tell
Oh my God, that's amazing. That's so fucking funny. Oh, dude, thank you so much. Thank you very much.
you got it.
I appreciate it. You have a wonderful day.
We'll talk to you later.
See you.
Yeah, you too. All right.
Oh my God, how hilarious was that?
Dude, that was beautiful.
That was, I mean, I thought it was gonna be like maybe 20 minutes, and then like we'd have to fill 40. That literally was 55 minutes of just fucking gold.
Yeah, that was great. I almost cried in the beginning.
Really?
I didn't want to. I was like covering my face. I was like, "Fuck, I can't do it."
Why? What almost made you cry?
It's a beautiful thing to just hear the stories that you weren't there for, but it gets sad when it's like these things don't exist anymore. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You can't go relive that. You can't go stand on that fucking tabletop. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
shit like that. I'm just like, damn, that
Yeah,
sucks.
I mean, we could go to Tijuana and fuck a bunch of chicks and just keep secrets. You know what I
I'm
mean? That's terrible. Man, that is truly just, dude. It is so fucking funny to see that and just to hear that about Pops. Yeah, I guess that's the episode. I mean, yeah, I guess that's it for now because we got the second pod coming. I think I'll have you start to sit in on the dead parents club stuff and just have Josh do To Be Frank. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Okay, perfect. They're actually stuck in traffic. They're going to be here in 10 minutes. It's great. So we can just do a little 10 minutes later. Fuck, I forgot what I was going to say. Yeah, it's so hearing stories about my dad, when I would bring him around the store, it kind of puts things in a lot more perspective because he would always like say things like he'd be like, he had a big drinking problem, so he'd always drink and stuff. But he'd always just be like, I can die happy now. And like, just because his kids are good. And whenever he'd come to the store, he'd always just be so excited. And I never understood why he loved it so much. I mean, I understood why he loved it, but now it gives me a little more context of like, he, in his heyday, he loved being the guy. He loved being the guy. He liked going to places and then people knowing who he was and moving moving the chain and all that jazz, the rope for him and stuff. And when he would come to the store, he would get that treatment.
Hell yeah.
And I think that's what like really like made him feel cool was like his name's on the wall. He gets to come in. The security guard's like, "Come on in." And then what are you staring at?
The recording button is like flickering right now.
No.
I've not seen that before.
Oh, is it low on terabyte?
I think there might be low memory.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, sick. I got you too high before you started doing this pod. That's so funny.
Yeah, I was freaking out in the beginning. That was also part of the reason I almost cried. I was like, and I'm too high.
But yeah, it's so for my dad to come to the store and see that and that kind of respect, because he would always say, he was like, "What do you want more? Do you want fame or respect?" And to him, he just always thought respect was such a big thing. So yeah, it felt good. Anyways, dude, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. Did you have fun?
Dude, yeah, this was a blast. It was really cool. Your dad seems like the coolest guy ever. I don't think I would have those stories about my dad, but that is your dad is sick as fuck.
Yeah, dude, it feels great. Thank you so much. We got more episodes coming. Have a good one, guys. Thank you.
Peace.